Well, tonight, as of course we had alluded earlier, we want to discuss the question of food security in this country. And if I can give you some very interesting statistics, is that about 2.1 million Kenyans are facing starvation in this country. And the situation is actually worse in about 23 counties. And the question is this: we have been here before, we are likely to be here again in the future if we do not put the necessary measures in place. So what exactly do we need to do, and what are we not doing right? To help us in this conversation, we are joined by Dr. James Nyoro. He is the chairperson of he's the governor of Kiambu County. He's also a former director with the Rockefeller Foundation. He's a former advisor to the president on food security as well as climate change, among other many posts in the past. Thank you very much indeed for joining us here.
I really appreciate it. Thank you.
The question of food security, Dr. James Nyoro, is something that we have talked for quite a long time, including with you here in this studio. How comes we've never gotten it right?
Well, we've never gotten it right because we probably haven't addressed the real issue. You know that agriculture was devolved in 2010, in our 2010 constitution. And if there is a sector that is heavily devolved, it's agriculture. But even before the devolution in 2010, we were already in trouble as far as food security is concerned. And what I really would want us to do is to look at food security, but also look at drought and drought management. Because what drought and drought management or mismanagement does is to make a bad situation worse. So the point I'm making is that long before the 2010 constitution, we still were grappling with feeding ourselves. I think the last time we were able to feed ourselves was probably early to mid 70s. From about getting to late 70s, we started seeing the difference between production and consumption. Of course, two things were happening at the same time. Production was declining. Started stagnating, but then started declining because the soil quality, everything, all those issues. But also our population was growing. Remember, our population at one point was growing at 4-point-something%. So you are here in a kind of a dilemma, because on one hand, your production is not growing and your population is growing at a very fast rate. There is urbanization, there are more people living in rural areas. So you get yourself into a situation where you have to do what the Malthusian rule says, that you have to grow your food geometrically and let the population increase arithmetically. Now, geometrically, it has to increase 3-fold, 4-fold. We didn't do that. So by the time we were devolving, we devolved a problem. So we told counties, take this problem. We've been unable to fix it. Go fix it. Now, you are telling 47 counties to go and fix a problem that you did not fix. And together with you as a nation, as a national government, you have 48 problems. So basically, to answer your question, is that we never got it right. And the reason we did not get it right, and the only thing that you can do is to run from the ones who have gotten it right. And who is the best example here? It is Ethiopia. In 1984, you remember the drought of 1984?
Yep.
And the whole world sang, "We are the world." They went to Ethiopia, okay? Thereafter, Ethiopia started to, manage itself, and the former prime minister, before these two, what was his name?
Haile Mariam Desalegn.
No, Haile Mariam Desalegn took over from that other, prime minister. Mengistu, yeah? He decided to do 3 things. And today, because of those 3 things, Ethiopia is a surplus food producer. They are actually sending beans to northern Kenya. The first thing that he did was to allocate, by the way, it's a long story, but we cannot continue with it because he got caught up into the problem and he went looking for a solution. And he went to Bill Gates, who was my employer in 2016, and he said, how can I fix it? And he said, are you willing to fix it? Yeah, okay, let's go study the problem. Do 3 things. 1, allocate more money in agriculture. Ethiopia allocated over 12% of its money, of its budget in agriculture. But Ethiopia, remember, is also devolved in a way because they have regions.
Yeah.
Okay? So what they did, the second thing they did was coordination. They made sure that there is coordination between the national government and the regions. We have given you the money, but we have to know and understand how you are using it. They made sure they formed an ATA, Agricultural Transformation Agency, whose role was to make sure that even within government, national government, there is coordination. Agriculture is the only sector that will have to depend on roads, have to depend on energy, it has to depend on environment. If you are in Garana Kuraru, it has to depend on tourism because wildlife is there. It has to depend on rats. It has to depend on forestry. It has to depend on finance. Unless you have clear coordination within those ministries and then coordinate with the regions, okay, you will not get it right. Does not matter whether you allocated enough money. So that's the second thing that he did. Coordination. Coordination within the regions and coordination within government itself. And the third thing that they did was accountability. We've given you, what are you going to do? You are going to produce so many tons of teff in one of the regions. We are going to produce so many tons of wheat in another region. We have given you the money. We've given you the roads. We've given you, account for us. Where is the teff? Where is the wheat? Accountability came in. Out of those 3 things, Ethiopia has been able to transform itself. You know, it has one of the highest population outside Nigeria in Africa, but it has been able to feed itself, and now it's feeding us.
Look, you've talked about 3 things. And when you look at the Kenyan situation, I mean, we have some of the best policymakers in this country, in the African continent. And so the issues of policy formulation cannot be a big challenge. When you look at our funding, you know, to agriculture, well, we may not be at 10%, but now we're talking about 5.5%. So how comes, even with those 2 things, and of course, one would say that there is also a very serious political goodwill when you look at the Big 4 agenda on food and nutrition. So how comes still we're groping in dark?
You know, first of all, you have to appreciate the magnitude of your problem and then allocate resources with respect to the magnitude of your problem. So what are we talking about here? Because I said we are talking about 2 things to answer your question. The first thing that you have to look at is, what is the problem? Food insecurity, what does that mean? We are now talking about 2 million people who are going hungry and increasing. Now those are people in famine-stricken areas. Under normal circumstances, even when there is no famine, 30% of Kenyans are food insecure. Meaning they will probably not eat a meal, or they will eat 1 meal a day. They are eating less than the 2,200 calories that is required for a normal human being. So you have to look at the magnitude of the problem. Kenya is spending in excess of 250 billion shillings to import basic food commodities. I mean, we can only produce 25% of our rice needs. We import 75% of our wheat from Pakistan, from all over the place. Wheat, we can only produce 20% from Transmara and Meru and wherever. 80% of our wheat needs is imported from outside. Sugar, we were doing very well with Mumias and Ramisi and the others, and at that point we were only importing 40%. Now I think we are importing 60%
Actually 65%
of our sugar needs. Maize, I mean, which every Kenyan should be able to grow outside your backyard. To be honest with you, although we don't like talking about it, we are importing on a normal year something in excess of 30% of our maize needs from Tanzania and from Uganda, and now beans coming from Ethiopia, and potatoes coming from Rwanda. That should shock you. And onions coming from Tanzania. So the magnitude, so I'm saying, you start with that magnitude of a problem of an import bill of 250 billion, which means that you are exporting jobs and you are importing poverty.
And killing industry.
And say, how are you, because you see, if you have such a big gap, first of all, you cannot fix it in a day. Okay? And then you have to have a multifaceted way of fixing it. And one of the ways that we thought a multifaceted way is, first of all, you have to come in and do a Garanda Kuraru kind of project, while at the same time not marginalizing the farmers in North Rift, but making sure that the farmers in the North Rift are facilitated to move to the next level of production, so that they move from maize and maybe they can come to avocado, they can come to whatever, and they can buy their food. So you have to have a Marshall Plan. So I'm telling you, the reason why we can't fix it is that we have not understood the magnitude of the problem. The problem is big. It does not require you to sit one day. And I really appreciate putting food security as one of the big four. That was really a bold step. But we have to ask, how much resources have we put into one of those big four in order to commensurate with the problem that we're having?
When the project Galana Kulalu, kicked off in 2014, you are the advisor to the president on food security and climate change. From the paper, it looked like it was a great project. But how many years down the line, almost 6 years down the line, we're still grappling with the issue of Galana Kulalu. How did we get it wrong?
Well, first of all, I think we have to appreciate that the concept was right. We sat together and we said, with the kind of figures that we are talking about, how can we quickly bridge the gap? And we said we'll bridge the gap by, first of all, going large scale, but at the same time supporting small scale, because, it's not either or. So the option was good. Whether or not we could have done 1 million acres, that's a 1 million acre question, okay? The real issue is that, did we do a real feasibility study? Okay? Did we face the facts as they were? And I will just give you a few facts to tell you that we didn't. Okay? And we highlighted some of this. But I'll tell you the definition of an advisor is that somebody who is supposed to tell you what to do, but I should not hold you accountable on whether or not you do what
whether you do it or you don't.
By the time River Garana gets to Garana, it has probably about 25% of the water remaining. Okay, so it comes from top. By the time it's in Garana, it has about 25% of the water remaining. Now you cannot abstract 100% of the 25%. So assuming that you could abstract 15%, to leave 10% to flow all the way to Malindi, the 15% could only have done up to a maximum of probably 20,000 acres. Okay? So if you are depending on the river.
So the river did not have capacity in the first place?
Well, that's what we are saying. And we recommended, and it was in the feasibility study, that for this project to work, we need to put up a dam upstream. Okay? For us to put a dam, and the feasibility study was done by Israelis on a dam upstream. For you to put up a dam upstream, and we were talking about now 2014, November, the best contractor would probably have taken 24 months. Okay? So 24 months takes you to probably end of 2016. Now, even if you complete the dam, it required the wrong rains to fill. That is 2017, and we were going for elections in 2017. So Nyoro, the planning is, you see, that's what I'm talking about, Marshall Plan. If you want to do 1 million acres, 1 million acres is done by so much water.
Yeah.
How much of that water is available, and how much of that water will you tap from outside? Okay, we even had technologies, because we were having Israelis, we had technologies of getting aquifers. You remember, that was more or less the same time when we got aquifers in Turkana. Okay, but then it turned out that the water was salty. So we were using that technology to check if we could get aquifers in order to enhance the water availability to move to 300 or 400,000 acres.
Tell me this, Daktari. I mean, because when you look at Vision 2030, it talks about Galana Kulalu irrigation scheme, to deal with the recurrent issue of hunger in this country. Is there any way we can get it right?
Yes, there is. The first thing that you do, and this is project planning, is a book called Gitija. Okay, it was written by a guy who was working in the World Bank, and it's about project planning. And it starts by, you have to understand the magnitude of your problem. Two things. First of all, I have to tell you point blank that for us to fix the food security problem in Kenya, it has to be done by both large scale and small scale production. It is neither or. Now, you can do up the maximum that you can do in Garana Kuraru. I think under the Big Four, the president has done fantastically well, because there is quite a lot of effort. I understand they've increased the number of acres, but like I said, how many more acres can you do without the dam? Okay, what we started thinking about around that time is that the 1 million acres doesn't have to be necessarily be in Garana Kuraru. We can have 100 or 20 or 50,000 acres in Pekera. We can have another 20,000 acres in Turkana. You can have another 50,000 in Roa Muranga. All of them will add up to a million. Okay, so we wanted to start thinking that 1 million does not necessarily mean it all has to be in the same place. In fact, I wanted to tell you that one of the other things that we were considering is that Garana opened into the Indian Ocean. And that time we were having Al-Shabaab area. So defense was also to be part of the planning that we were thinking about. And I'm happy the president today was in Ram talking about that. But I want to tell you that this situation has even become more complicated. Because now you are talking about, at that time we were talking about one government. We were talking about the national
now you have 47 more.
Now you have 48 governments. You have 47 more governments. The question really is, we have to do what other countries have done. The countries that have devolved agriculture, US, for instance, or even South Africa. If you go to South Africa, if you go to Bloemfontein, they specialize in a particular commodity. Okay? If you go to the US, if you are in California, it is apples. If you are in Florida, it is oranges. If you are in Kansas, it is dairy. Okay? Now the government needs to sit, and I've said this, we need to sit together and identify the comparative advantage of each of these counties.
And work
and then the government should be able to provide an incentive of money, saying, you Kiambu, you have a comparative advantage of producing coffee.
Go for it.
If you want to produce maize, go produce maize. But we are not going to work with you to produce maize. We are going to work with you to produce coffee. That's what. So the national government calls Kiambu the coffee county. They go to us in Gishu and they do everything to make sure that we have mechanized, and they call it the maize county. And they will do coffee and others. That rapport between the national government, I'm the chair of the agriculture committee at COG. Okay, but that rapport is not there.
It is what is missing.
It is missing.
Tell me this, look, because we have to wind up in the interest of time. The Kenyan population has doubled in the last 25 years. It is also going to double in the next 25 years. When you look at population growth trajectory in this country. And so has the number of people who are in dire need of food every year. And you are talking about 10%. So we are likely to have 20% of the population, which will double in the next 25 years, in dire need of food. How do we forestall that kind of a problem?
We can forestall that kind of a problem if we go back to what other countries did. We are not the only country that has been caught up in this quagmire. If you remember what happened in Asia, it was exactly that food production was growing arithmetically. and the population was growing geometrically. And Mathusian, one of the others, or economists, came up with a doomsday, that there will be a time when there will be too many people without food.
Yeah. And
what they did was the Green Revolution in Asia. And if you look at the Green Revolution in Asia, and I keep on talking about this book. I think the other Stedman, he should give me a prize. There's a book called How Asia Works, and the book talks about what you need to do to fix agriculture. And what you need to do to fix agriculture is, first of all, like I said, appreciate the problem, put more money into agriculture, put more money in agricultural research. How much money are we putting in agricultural research? Put more money in extension. Counties are unable to do extension, and we blame counties also, because they inherit a problem and they have done nothing about fixing it. There are new models now of doing extension. Put more money in borrowing, in financing. What I'm saying is that you have to sit down, just like a patient and a doctor, identify the problem and say, we are going to fix it within the next 10 years. We know that we cannot be all over the place. So we have identified 15 counties that are bread basket, and we are going to give them incentives to produce the food. But for us to do that, we have to appreciate the problem. I don't think the policymakers in Kenya, including us governors, have really appreciated the problem that we are in, including the drought that is recurrent, that comes in every 3 years.
Nyoro, in 1 minute, if we do not do what you are prescribing, what will happen in the next 10, 15 years?
We will be spending all our earnings on food imports, because remember, other countries are actually producing. The fact that we are not producing does not mean that New Zealand or even Uganda here or Tanzania are not producing. If we are spending 250 billion today, in another 5 or 6 years, we'll be spending 500, 600 billion. Okay, just the way we import oil, we'll be importing food. And that's the doomsday that we are talking about.
I hope you are wrong.
I hope I'm wrong too, but who would want to see that kind of situation?
Nobody.
Nobody.
Otherwise, thank you very much indeed for your insight.
Great.
And of course for finding time to be with us here and sharing, of course, your expertise on these issues. And I hope that the policymakers and policy implementers have listened to you, and of course we'll get to a point where we do the right thing at the right time.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Asante sana. Dr. James Nyoro is the governor of Kiambu County, as well as an agricultural economist, well versed on matters food security, joining us tonight here to help us understand what do we need to do as a country to make this nation a food secure nation. You have heard it from him. Thank you very much. You're watching the Prime Edition. Stay right here.